Alright, in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the latest product offering from Glenn's Retro Show. This is the GRS Flight Yoke. Now Glenn was kind enough to send me out this production sample for a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm a bit of a Star Wars nerd if you haven't already noticed. And number two, well, Glenn's just genuinely a nice guy. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and unbox this behemoth and see how it plays, shall we? Alright, let's open this up, see what we got inside the box. Let's cut my finger off. Okay, inside we've got the user manual. Nice little note for the Kickstarter backers there from Glenn himself. Nice thick styrofoam. Oh, and we have the yoke itself, and boy howdy is that thing solid and heavy. I was not prepared for how thick and hefty this bad boy was going to be. Definitely a change over the plastic device, but then you got some mounting screws and double check, make sure there's nothing else in there. But yeah, everything comes well packaged, nice foam on the top and the bottom, so you don't have to worry about damage. Alright, we'll do a little bit of a side-by-side comparison here. We got the GRS yoke next to the stock Arcade1Up yoke. Now as I back out, you can instantly tell that we have a glaring omission here. There is no Atari logo on the GRS yoke, where there is of course on the Arcade1Up. Now for legal reasons you can understand why there isn't an Atari logo printed on this, so just be forewarned if you were expecting it. That's an easy replication, something you put on a decal if you absolutely need that Atari logo, but other than that, the graphic, as you can tell, is a pretty good faithful reproduction as to what you were expecting or already accustomed to on the Arcade1Up yoke. Now, zooming in on the graphics a little bit, the Arcade1Up yoke, it's got a little more bright colored white and grays as far as the static around the yoke. The GRS one is a little closer printed together and it's a darker gray, so it doesn't pop and stand out as much. But as far as scale and everything, both yokes are going to be pretty much one-to-one identical to each other. Where they really differ is their features and their build quality. The GRS yoke is like 95% metal, and it absolutely just feels like a tank in the hand. It weighs probably 4 times as much as the Arcade1Up yoke, which was primarily made of almost entirely all plastic parts and pieces, which is not really a knock at it, because to this day I'm still amazed at the quality you get out of this plastic yoke and how well it performs and plays. So, you know, my hat has always been, you know, tipped to Arcade1Up engineers for pulling this off. However, where this one really excels is its ability to integrate with multiple different facets. So around back we got lots of cables. First and foremost, you have a USB connection, so you can plug this into a Mac or a PC or whatever and just use this as a mouse or any kind of analog controller via USB, which is very simple and easy to do. You just plug it in there, it installs the driver, and you're ready to go. Secondly, it comes with additional, get these cables, there we go, get them separated. We get some arcade connections, which is very impressive. Anybody that's ever done, research to the replacement parts and the cost of them for the original Atari Star Wars cabinets that are out there, you know that these parts and pieces are very highly sought after and thus very expensive. So I think it's really awesome that you can use this on a legit Atari Star Wars cabinet if you wanted to. And lastly, you have connections for the Arcade1Up encoder board. This way you can plug in the GRS yoke to the stock encoder board. You don't need to do any modifications to your Arcade1Up Star Wars cabinet whatsoever. You're simply going to do some plug and play action. So once you've removed your stock Arcade1Up yoke and removed the wires, your encoder board should look like this. These 5 open ports here and then one over here on the left hand corner. You'll still have your power and your volume plugged in. All you need to do, grab this end right here, plug it in over here, and we've got our 4 remaining connectors, and we're going to plug them in this order. So we're going to do green and black right here, then we're going to do blue and black right next to it, we're going to do brown and black underneath, and in the bottom right hand corner going to do your red and black. And literally that's all we have to do. Make sure your encoder board is still plugged into your Arcade1Up PCB. Installation on the existing Arcade1Up control deck is very simple and straightforward. After you remove the stock yoke and the mounting plate, you simply just feed the wire loom on the GRS yoke through the new mounting plate bracket, then feed the included bolts through on the corners, and then tighten down the nuts. Very simple, very easy. But other than that, you are ready to go once you've installed the yoke, mounting plate. The GRS yoke is mounted to your control deck. You've got your encoder board plugged in and everything. You're ready to go and play some games on the Arcade1Up Star Wars cabinet. And in terms of build quality, again, like I said, almost all metal construction here. The handles are made of a slightly different plastic than what we see on the Arcade1Up. The thumb buttons, very soft presses on the Arcade1Up. Similar press, slightly different, but very, very similar for these thumb buttons. It's the trigger buttons that change significantly. So the trigger buttons, much more prominent, much more satisfying tactile click on the GRS yoke trigger buttons as opposed to the stock Arcade1Up. And another really slick feature that I thought was very impressive as far as the engineering design aspect was the buttons on the back of the yoke itself. So there's actually some kind of hidden buttons behind the main body of the yoke that sit in between the mounting plate that goes on your control deck and the yoke itself. So you rotate it out of the way a little bit. In this top corner, we've got the single depress power button, so you can power it on and off. If you don't ever want to have to mess with that, you can leave it in the on position. That way you don't have to touch it again. And there's also actually, luckily enough, plenty of room to get your finger back there. So even once you've got it installed on your control deck, you don't have to worry about having to power things on and off all the time. You can leave it on, or if for whatever reason you wanted to turn it off, you can get your finger back there. But there's also two action buttons on the bottom. So we got here and here. So you notice on my modded Star Wars Arcade1Up control panel, I've added some additional buttons. Up top I had a coin and a start button for playing, you know, my MAME games, things like that. If I would have had something like this, then I wouldn't have had to drill additional buttons, because I can essentially map these bottom buttons here as a coin and a start button if I'm playing on a PC or something like that, or a modded device. So very nifty, very handy. So not only do you get your 4 action buttons with a trigger, but you can also map these additional buttons as, you know, things like coin and start, or they actually serve a different purpose. So you can change this yoke over to mouse mode if you've got it plugged into a PC. So this responds exactly like a mouse controller would. Or if you want to invert your controllers without having to take out your control deck, rewire things, or if you didn't want to go into your input configuration settings and invert and change your settings that way, you could simply do that by using the commands and the depress buttons on the bottom of the yoke and following the instructions that are included. So it's very handy. So if you like playing flying games and you like, you know, this to be down and this to be up, or vice versa, you can change that by simply doing a couple button presses on the yoke itself and you're ready to go. So pricing and availability on this. So $200 is going to be the price, available on Amazon later on this year. Quality, can't knock it whatsoever. Absolutely extremely well made, very sturdy, performs exceptionally well. Played it on my modded cabinet, played it with my stock Arcade1Up PCB and all that. Played it over here on the, the gaming computer, played it with new games, old games, racing games, shooting games, driving games, flying games, you name it. This thing performed exceptionally well on all those, and I was very happy with it overall. Very excited to use this as my new flight yoke on my Arcade1Up cabinet. And honestly, there's really only like one downside I can even think about with this GRS yoke, and that's the fact that generally not everyone needs it. I mean, it's the fact that the original Star Wars Arcade1Up cabinet yoke is a-okay. It performs exceptionally well. While it is made of plastic, it does the job, and it's not just begging to get replaced because it performs like a piece of crap. No, it performs exceptionally well. However, this of course will stand the test of time because it's a much more durable, sturdy construction, and it's got that arcade quality. But, you know, do you need to go out and spend $200 to replace that stock yoke? No, you really don't. However, this is still an exceptional value. So people that are maybe building their own full-size cabinet, driving cabinets, things like that, or refurbishing or repurposing existing Atari Star Wars cabinets, aftermarket yokes right now, there's the Allen one that's $350 and really only made to go into the arcade Atari Star Wars full-size cabinet. This does everything that does and more, and is $150 less. and again, has different functionality. Has USB port, has the arcade port, has the Arcade1Up port, works as a mouse, has extra buttons. I mean, this has got all the bells and whistles that other things on the market currently don't, and it does it for a significantly less price. If you're gonna try to get the original refurbished or, you know, OEM part for the Atari Star Wars cabinet, the yoke itself, the OEM refurbished is like $400 to $500. So again, there's tremendous value in this at $200, whether it, you know, be for the aftermarket enthusiast or somebody that really, really loves their Arcade1Up cabinet and just wants to replace that yoke with something that is arcade quality. Well, then definitely consider picking this up when it goes on sale. I'll put product link down in the video description box below. Again, it's supposed to be available later on the year, but I do have to commend Glenn and the technical prowess and the engineering that went behind this thing, because like I said, the fact that it's essentially a Swiss Army knife still is very, very impressive to me. The fact that it does all these different things right out of the box, didn't have to calibrate it. It's literally plug and play for almost every single application I could throw at it. So great work to the team that put this together. Great work, Glenn. And I just want to say thanks again for letting me have a look at it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed this if you got it on Kickstarter or if you're thinking about picking it up in the future. If you do, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And as always, thanks for watching, guys. Really means a lot.